Oh my God.
Apotropos.
Hey.
Oh, they made up.
I almost passed it to you guys. I just like
For a girl?
by,
Oh, perfect.
the automotive store.
What makes them feel like?
You going through?
No,
Let's see if
I'm just standing here to make you feel nervous.
Does this work? Don't you make people relax? Oh, that's amazing. Look, we're adjusting to everyone. Perfect. How are you?
Yeah, but first thing makes them nervous.
Great.
Yeah.
She's smart, he stayed late, I love that.
Yeah, well, I can't call him over.
You came late, I know, I heard.
Yeah, so.
So you visited.
Great, yeah.
So my sister or not there? And your brother, Dan?
I did see that. I saw them on Friday night at the Coastal. They'll hang out with Sam and Rafi.
Yeah, it was
and,
Sammy the whole time. Sammy
Yeah.
was the first time ever going there.
It's unbelievable, I know.
It was Sammy never went to Israel, Josh, and Sammy never went to Israel for his life.
On Shabbos, and it wasn't.
Yeah, we walked back from the Coastal with them.
The last one I went to, because I didn't have an 8-month-old son, so I had to do something with my daughter. My 8-month-old would not have survived in the hotel the whole Shabbos, so we opted not to go this one.
When did they go back?
So for more like this.
So you went to the.
When did your sister go back?
They had the waning and the kiddush in the morning, and then the party started at 9 o'clock. Like 9:30.
Richard, you don't know Wayne?
Not really, though, not much.
That's the easy way out of it. I gotta find people to win.
You share the burden? What did this guy Schreier charge? Same price?
Same price. I mean, I paid them the same price.
Nice.
What's up?
Awesome.
I ended up giving Klein.
Sure, garbage here or not?
Wait, did he did,
Originally, he was only supposed to do on a custom Bereshas,
right.
but then Dr. Wiseman didn't show up. So
He didn't show up?
Dr. Wiseman, after this, I'm just went
From
home.
Mayor Stone.
He ended up leaving.
About
Nice.
the biggest wedding in the Middle East.
I was the one last week with the whole thing with
Who else? Who Wayne?
Anything else?
Who Wayne tonight?
David Wiseman.
It was nice. He writes very well.
And night is easy. Most people can do it in their sleep.
Right.
This is the big Spanish?
Even the people that say, now that you're here, it's the basement.
It seems in Israel a lot more people know how to lane.
Don't we have to put up a fence here?
They don't know how to lay. They just.
How you doing? Don't we have to
Right.
have a fence? How are you?
You're not having a bagel con.
Common experience. Common.
No, not
Comment.
Why?
Kevin, can you explain to me why there's no fence from their
So
house
you
to
see
the
it.
privacy?
What do you mean?
The guy who rents the house can walk right into the pool.
No, I can't.
What do you mean you can't?
He's
Not
not
allowed
allowed
to get there.
To the back
Back
door?
door.
No, it's locked from the inside.
Okay, so what, don't you think the fence there? Don't you need a fence to separate the property?
Which back door are you talking about? The one that you see?
The guy who rents the front house.
Oh, it's just the door from the outside. The inside's a wall. Meaning that door that you see as a way to access the backyard
Uh-huh.
is just a.
Oh,
It's not a mechanics. No cheat.
you stop being a pain in the neck?
He told me I should
That's
lose weight. He
incredible.
told me there's a contest.
This guy is such a negative. Will you stop being negative about every single thing in the world?
So what is it?
You should be happy.
It's a
Everything has to
diversity
be
control. 1 minute.
How are ya?
Very positive Josh you gave yesterday.
Oh, good, I'm happy
I'm
you enjoyed
suffering
it.
for 4 days straight, going to the gym.
Where's Kalman Milberg?
Because I've been cleansing my body for 4 months.
He told me today, I walked in the show today, Kevin,
Yeah.
I walked in the show today, he says, I don't get it. You were skinny for so long, now you got fat. He's what he tells me in my face.
He was skinny. Look, he got a belly again.
You got a belly.
Don't
man.
matter.
Three.
I want my rabbi to look like GQ. When it comes to me,
You're
I'm
the
like,
biggest
I want him to
thing
look
there.
good.
I'm retired, leave me
I
alone.
want to be impressive.
Hey, Rabbi, you can sit on comfortable job. We'll go.
Larry, I went to the next time, I like to do this.
You like to take the abuse?
I like to do this.
Oh, man.
Which is what I sent you. But where are we?
Johnny.
I just got it. I got back out of control.
His Majesty,
But now you'll give a address.
Shabbos?
Yeah, please.
It's Johnny.
10 minutes
It's a
maximum.
routine they do with a shoe shine guy. You're gonna love it.
I don't have to take home with them.
I used to love that.
Yeah. But no, yeah.
Noyak was a pig.
Hey, where Tonya, it's no, yeah.
Who's laying this Shabbos? You?
Me?
Dr. Steiner.
Yes.
Dr. Klein is coming?
I'll probably lean, I guess.
Frank, what is this, Avenue or Place?
Avenue.
Center Street. Center Street.
No.
No, yeah,
Franklin Avenue
And Center Street.
and Center Street. The corner, corner of Franklin. I think his address is technically.
Laura, how we doing, Laura?
Franklin
Good.
Okay, continue right there. No, you like his mark? It's not a bad place,
It's in the
huh?
backyard.
Richie, are you done with
It's a beautiful place.
Richie, are you done with the evil? You
I'm
finished?
done with the evil, yeah.
What are you, what's your new, project?
You see, David?
54 ways of looking at that.
How are you? You see David? You see David?
Oh,
What's
occasionally. Occasionally. He's not, he's no longer practicing medicine.
Why?
Working for his father-in-law.
Who doesn't practice?
David Lipschitz.
You never liked him. You never heard him.
I never understood that guy. I love him, I love him.
You never understood him.
Does he still go to Gilbert?
I don't know. Less sugar.
Wow.
You know, I came back from Israel. I met him at
Oh, you saw this on my daughter, weren't
my wife did. Yeah, also my wife did.
Where you wanna have some.
They called him. I saw him at the rental car place. I saw him in just watched the weekend. His father's Yorkshire. I saw him. We were trying to rent the cars together.
You can't always feel that.
He's being honored.
You're being honest, right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have that.
He recognized me. I don't know if I would recognize him. He's
Short.
a very nice guy.
Within an hour. Even though they'll be in like, as long as you're not.
To be honest.
How's your son doing there?
An hour or so.
On some sites, we don't follow.
He's a lot of happy. He's in Terra, right? Yeah. He's a lot of like 4 or 5 happy. Yeah, but Asia Torah is like model program. Sorry.
Class of
Which
orange.
Asia Torah is Asia program.
You know, everyone tells me that you should ask her about that.
Say that again? They begins now, right.
That's what I hope.
Does it work?
We told them, you can get one nowadays. One of our neighbors dropped off some literature. You saw that one? There was another like that. I got one of those blue house. Video is playing and it's recorded. You don't have recording. I'll edit it after. I'll cut it out. I can edit it and cut it out. No, that's what I want to do on my side. I remember reading this. I don't know if he wrote his own.
Yeah. Every day.
I still hang out in front of the, why was he so angry?
Over the list, changed with him. I became angry.
He's a homeowner who's mentally ill.
Which stop was it? I want to listen. How many days last night?
It was the one night I listened to a bunch of shots last night. I'm seeing everything, guy.
You heard it this morning.
You heard about it last night. Specifically here, like zero conversation. It's one of those things where like, I'm not complaining, but it wasn't
He wasn't.
Rebbe, where's the creamer?
When I lived in Toronto,
There's no creamer here.
It's, your house.
Where's the creamer I like?
That's the recession.
No creamer.
Homeless guy.
You're asking him, it's in your house.
You don't have any friends outside.
I have to look back now. I have to go back and work.
You think you should have figured out to go to your kitchen?
He's not. He looks good right now.
He works with me.
I was so nice to you the other day. I said, "Look, I had a
That's very nice.
So what kind of material was he
You
using?
don't need to be in it.
I'm gonna get like really just kind of things that it really wasn't even anti-Semitic. It was just kind of.
He has his own house.
I'll give him a bag. I don't know.
So they put him in jail for 2 hours and he's out and big deal. What's the deal?
He's married to the
He has been
oil.
a good out. He has supposed to be able to raise an anchor.
He's gonna wash. He's gonna wash your house.
He
wanna wash
He gets that.
Matthew was hanging out.
Turn on the asteroids. Turn on the asteroids again.
Oh, yeah, no, we're done.
Oh, we're done. There's a tree. Got it. Zeldin is next. Where's my beer? The asteroids.
You're probably saying that to scare them.
How does it play out?
I can only say for my daughter's birthday party. Yeah, now. Yeah, New York City. Cloud's not going to heavily. Cloud's not going to use it as a we have in the background, we have 107.
I need my chair.
Pizza, we make cakes and frosting.
My oldest son. My wife is the
You want a donut? I did that right. So they have a clown and they have a special guest. It wasn't good for me, but I work nights, right? But I'm also so with independent fashion, I have for like Thursday night, I work sport back that right? I need something not there. I take fruit and vegetables like that. I can't do it in the bathroom during the day and during the night.
Yeah, there's a lot of
back 4 parties. I'm taking my next guy.
Okay, good. Where I live, Shalamas moved to Illinois, did for services. Shalamas was not.
It's amazing.
Right, they moved to the New York sports. Right. Gesher moved from Bethel to Rambam. Gesher moved from Bethel to Rambam, and we moved to Bethel.
That's not the problem. The one that was right here.
I found out, someone else told me about it. Some lady. And I said something to her, and she freaked out. She's like, it's a secret. Please don't tell anyone. I'm like, okay. Her, she's not even on the side. She had full time. No, she has 2 kids post high school, and her daughter is very anti this, and now it's her time. Now her like, school's not gonna be around. Yeah, so she's getting. So I said something to her. My wife said, she got like, where you here? It's not such a like, you can't show up one day. I'm a doctor. Like, people are gonna know you know this.
He has a medical reason.
No, they're only on campus 1 day a week. Yeah, everything else is remote. They're only on campus for lab. They're only on campus for lab. For lectures, it's only lab.
Solid. Helps you like mind, love, and
In what's it called? Before COVID, lectures weren't mandatory. They were all recorded by the professor. It was strongly recommended that you show up. Right. But it was strongly recommended you show up. But if you had to miss it, you always had access. Now they don't want to put 125 people in a lecture anymore.
Very good.
How many do we expect?
Milk and sugar? How much sugar?
First class is 100.
Sweet lump?
What's in one year?
NYU is like 200.
We just have some figures.
And that's one thing, right?
Yeah, but most people that go there don't
Some kind of
They have to say that actually people don't want to spend time with you, but they
PhD they're 5.8. I have a friend that went there, but he said that most of his class, when he goes to uni, they're not. Searching for a job for someone that's not going to I got searching for a job for someone that's not going
I put a top on for you.
They get roughly 30 but half their class is only allowed to go into primary care.
Yeah, ATV was about.
Have you done the
They have two classes. They have one in the city and one by Winthrop, right? The one by Winthrop is a primary care program only. You cannot get a residency outside of primary care.
I mean, it's solid.
Family practice.
Your mind, right? Like when you're in an ATV, like literally there are times you think you're gonna tip over, but you have to keep in mind, you know. It's very interesting.
You know you're not because
You're in that mindset.
Right. So you know the wheel is designed and
Nurse practitioners and PAs. That's what happened.
What are you looking for?
very good. Right, exactly what it is.
What job is
Never
it?
do that in a month. We'll go So you know what's going on. You know what's going on. You work and do something. You like a good morning. I sit like this. This is how it feels. Like a good morning. Go inside. Windows. The plus thing is
Plenty of nurses make more than starting doctors. If you're a 5-year nurse in ICU, you're making 120. If you're a resident, you're making what?
Back then, and kids that
Right.
Yes, part of it.
And what you get?
Not showing.
Like 50 men and like 25
Got
years.
it, but that's how. That's
Great
what
salaries.
And now they're making like 17.
So once you're there, and they get
So
pulled
by
back, pulled
learning
back.
the surgery, you get on the block.
That's a great residency. Yeah, it's not near us, but it's great.
See if you can figure this
Go
out.
show my jobbers.
November 5th to it.
20. And what am I doing?
But like, who has super shot programs?
My
Very
friend
few. St. John's is not really Shama Shabbos, but they're accommodating.
Who's his DME?
French will have a lot of people there coming out.
I don't know. I don't know who it is. I have a friend that just went through there. Yeah, Mayor Cook. They're accommodating, but he went into family practice. He wasn't looking for a specialty. His father's a doctor for 100 years. His father has one of the biggest practices in Lakewood.
He's a general, right, he's a regular, right.
Yeah, I think
When I started, I told you, when I got involved with
used to be a usual service.
Your wife, we need a female pediatrician, so yours is like, I'll be busy.
There you go, Kalman.
Young Israel tried to buy.
Yeah, you got pediatrician.
They bought it from, Foreign Temple.
No, it's right. You took that to church.
Oh, it's working now.
Yeah. I just turned it, I turned this off.
No.
The
Make it colder.
It's like those
I knew
restaurants.
Kalman, let's get underway, bro. We're here for the Torah, not for the food also.
Get there and your tax.
That time restaurant, I've never seen one for people.
Kalman, let's rock and roll.
I'll tell you the story because people have to go to work. So nobody works there.
Sunday,
Even move away from. More towards,
I know what you're talking about. I work at
That's fair.
There's a lot of people who people that have to be somewhere at a certain time.
Oh, God.
We block everything. Kalman, you ready? Let's start, no?
Our people are coming from.
I didn't even eat breakfast yet.
All right.
You snooze, you lose. Right, we're gonna start. Are you gonna do a sitter or a stander?
What is this?
I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna have a couple of eggs here.
It's icy.
Okay.
Robert, the comments says the shirt tomorrow.
And reviewing. That's a sort of-
Kevin, give it a drug.
If anyone wants water, there's got water bottles.
Yeah,
I
make
can
sure
go water.
Sit down and start teaching.
Aaron. Kevin, the young.
Your wife?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, pass,
It's not around, but it's
They
on the level.
are exclusive early
We're invited.
to play nowhere else.
Whose coffee is this?
That's great.
I didn't say anything, doctor. Your rep Kevin's delegate, you were in tax section, you're giving the doctor that.
I didn't do yesterday. I got that.
Everyone have Gemaras? We have lots of extra Gemaras here. Everyone have Everyone have Gemaras?
Yeah, we're sharing them. Yeah, next quarter.
No, I have extra.
Let me have that. Dr. Dan passes them.
I honestly don't think we're.
Dan Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
If we were thinking anybody need Gemaras, we have extra Gemaras.
You gotta think of it control. You get some closer.
We're a brand affiliate. We're brand
What do you mean?
Keep talking like that.
Not sure the giant has.
All right, this one.
Okay.
On the left side, you see it.
I think it's a very strong cell.
We love it.
Marshall.
They only had one.
I actually don't have the. I was there.
3 out of 4.
I have no insurance here.
Wow.
One was,
Yeah.
This was what number?
109.
We had extended connectivity.
Yeah.
Is there
One on nine.
Okay, hold on, Mishnah, that Kuf Ches on the base in the back.
You got this?
Well, I don't- And Dahlia has I don't know about you guys, I have this. Oh, you want to hear it?
Well, this is your bonus. This is not gonna work. No, that's not gonna work.
That's 45, I think.
Out there.
You didn't come up with me.
Here we are on the very
Okay,
last.
so, I'm giving today's daf in memory of my father, Kalman Milberg, ben Simcha, my mother, Chaya, Bas Israel, and I appreciate everyone coming, today. I thank you all, and I'm humbled by Hashem giving me this opportunity to, to try to teach some Torah today. And I thank you, Rebbe, for everything you've done for me, Magen Shiur, Reb Kevin. There's a Yehira song. I don't know how many of you say this.
Yeah.
I rarely do myself. I did the other day, and I'm going to say it here, probably in the English, so that I don't have to read it again and try to understand it. Or maybe I'll mix parts of it. Yehira song Mifanecha Adonai Elohai Shelo Ya'ara Derav Pekala Al Yadei. May it be your will, Hashem, that a mishap not come about through me. May I not stumble in the matter of law and cause my colleagues to rejoice over me. May I not say something regarding something which is tameh, that is tahar, and not regarding something which is tahar, that is tameh. May my colleagues not stumble in the matter of law, and I rejoice over them.
Don't stumble on the stairs.
May Hashem for Hashem grants wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding of Hashem. Unveil my eyes that I might perceive wonders from your Torah.
You can't do it.
Kalman,
you want to let James real quick?
Gene, I can help you with that, by the way.
I'm sorry, late.
That's okay.
Gene had a bris. Gene had a bris to go to. Always, most are never.
What Chris? I told you to. You want some coffee?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Kalman, before you start, can I just say one thing quickly?
Of course.
I just want to acknowledge how beautiful the base medrash is.
Well,
It's amazing.
Kalman got a Yerusha from his father, and instead of the rest of us, we probably use it to just, waste it on stupidity. He decides to build a base medrash in his house, so that he has a place to come learn, a place to invite. It says so much about the way Kalman lives his life and the mysterious nefesh that he has for Torah. I think we should just take a moment to acknowledge how beautiful it is. And to thank Hashem, we have the opportunity to learn from you. Thank you.
Amen.
Let's do it. Okay, so talk the Mishnah.
Thank you. Okay, so just a brief introduction for what we're going to learn today. There's actually 3 Mishnayos. We're going to learn about the Machlokes and topic about a man promising his son-in-law a dowry, and after he did Erusin, the father went ahead and he retracted. He said, "I'm not giving you the money." There's I think there's a suffix regarding whether he went bankrupt or whether he just, said, I don't want to pay the money, but we'll get to that in a minute. Then we're going to talk about Machlokes in the case where a man bought a field, and then the field was sold, and then he claims that he really owned the field or was stolen from him originally. And we're going to learn the halachas on that. And we're going to talk about, understanding a little bit the differences between the halachas between an Adian and a Dayan. Then we're going to also talk about this landowner that traveled abroad, and then when he came back to his house, he found out he can't get to his house anymore. I don't know, maybe he built a pool house outside, he didn't know where he was going, and then everything was surrounded, and he didn't know what to do, and we're going to review those concepts. We're in Mesechte Kesubos, and part of the concepts we're going to talk about also have to do with Erusin and Nesuin. As I think some of you know, as I think all of you know, Erusin is the first stage, right? Unlike today where we do everything at once, right? We do Erusin, Nesuin, we do Chuppah. Back in the days of the Gemara, it was done for a period of usually a year.
So there are, different ways that you could acquire kedushin. One is with money, then it's with an object or a ring, and then there's with bia. Although I think bia was probably not done as often. I think that was probably in the suin, right? I think that's even the Gemara threw me a little bit for a loop when I looked at the art scroll. It mentioned that, about consummating the marriage, but in the context of Nisuin, which I think is why I've mentioned to you. I don't understand, we discussed that,
Uncommon for Bia to be.
Yeah, it was uncommon even back in the day. So, yes, anyway, let's start with the Mishnah. We're at the bottom of Kuf Chet. Okay. Zuk the Mishnah HaPosek Ma'oz Lechasana. One promised money, person promised money to his son-in-law, right? His daughter was getting married. They were nervous and very happy, right? And all of a sudden, Avshat Lo Es Harego. He extended his foot to him, or the bottom of his foot. There's different interpretations there. Like I said, some Rishonim, I think, came back and said that maybe he was bankrupt and it wasn't like he really, backed out of it. But some people also feel that maybe he backed out of it. Be that as it may.
I saw a shot that says it means you put one foot over the other. He sat back like this and said, I'm not giving it enough. Like he put his feet out to him.
Right.
Pashat lo yatzarego. Put his foot out saying, I know I said it, but nothing.
Yeah. But why would he, I guess he did. Yeah, we don't talk about why.
He just wanted to get his next daughter married.
Right.
Now they're married. So it's like a guy in shul who says, I'll pay you for Hotzah Nachnosa, $5,000. Now he tries to collect on the bill, and all of a sudden,
and now he also wants the Kesubah now, right? Because even though you don't do Nesuin, right, you still get
Menaeris, you get the
So Teshev al Shetalbin Rosha. So the Chasam, he may let the kala just sit until her hair turns white, forever. He's just going to let us sit in this, erusing state until he goes ahead and forks over the calf, right? Adman Omer, Adman says, Yecholahi Shetoma, you can argue, Ele Ani Pasakti La'atzmi, if I had promised you money on my own behalf, if I had, told you that, I was going to give you the money, Al Shetalbin Roshi, it's understandable that, I could be made to sit around forever and do nothing. And just, hang out and never have the opportunity to get married. If I was the one that, gave the promise. Avshav Sha'aba Pasak, but my father's the one, that promised you the money. Ma ani yochalala asov, what do you expect me to do? What can I do? O kenos o patar, marry me or release me. Give me a get, and we'll move on from here. Omar Rabban Gamliel said, Ro'eh ani es divrei Adman. I see the words of Adman as being correct. A little bit later in the daf, we'll talk about the different interpretations of when Adman has a ruling and Rabban Gamliel says yes or no. We interpret things in different ways. It's a little bit wordy, that part. And I was telling you, I think the Gemara could have probably came back and done that whole thing and then one line, but there was a lot of wordy.
When they use one word, you don't like it. When they use too many words, it's too much.
Right. Yeah. It was like.
Listen, you have to figure on balance for the Daf Yomi. Sometimes the Gemara will have like 15, 16 lines. Where all it's doing is just repeating itself over and over.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Those are fantastic.
Nothing was going on.
From a preparation standpoint, it goes super quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have Gemaras where you have to fill the blanks in. Those are much harder.
Yeah.
I'd rather these.
And it was frustrating. And then, I actually looked at some notes that somebody else, he summed it up in one sentence, which is what I thought, it was. Anyway, so Zuk the Gemara is going to present an alternative version of this dispute, right? Because, one would think that Chachamim would agree with Adman. It's kind of reasonable there. Masnisin delo ki hai Tana. Our Mishnah is not consistent with that Tana. Reb Yosi, the son of Reb Yehuda, who recorded a different version of this dispute. The Tanya, as it was taught in the Brisa, Amar Rebbe Yosef Rebbe Yehuda, Lo nechlekku adman v'chachamim al ha-posek ma'oz lechasav. Adman and the chachamim didn't really disagree regarding one who promised money to the son-in-law, upshat lo es haregel, and then, defaulted from the whole thing. Shecholah hi shetomar, that the Kala could say, Abba Pasak alai, my father promised money on my behalf, Ma ani yochala la'asos, what can I do? Alma nechelku, where do they really disagree? Al shepaskahi al atzma, where she promised the money on her own behalf. So that's where they disagree, where she's the one that promised the money, not him. Shechachamim omrim, the Chachamim say, Teshev ad shetalbin rosha, he may let her, sit until her hair turns white. Adman Omer, Adman says, even in that case, Yecholo hi shetamah, kisvura ani she'aba nosen alai. I thought my father would, he was going to pay for it. So, that happens sometimes with your kids, right? They may say something, and then assuming that the dad's going to go ahead and pay for it.
The 5 towns, it happens a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was
my daughters,
or maybe it was, the standard procedure in that community. That's the.
That's a good point. Yeah, she's that. Yeah,
they pay for this.
Who's the minhag? Mahalach. Mahalach. Yeah. Mahalach. All right, so the Akshav She'ein Abba Nosen Alai, but now that my father's not paying for me, Ma'ani Yechola La'asos, what am I supposed to do? O Kenos O Pator, either marry me or release me. Amar Rabban Gamliel said, Ani es Divrei Adman. I see the words of Adman as being correct.
So it comes out, there's 2 different mahalchim and how to understand the machlekes.
Right.
Mahalch number 1 is they're arguing when the father promised the money.
Just the father.
And the second one is where everyone would agree when the father promised that she gets out. She can say to him, you must divorce me or finish the marriage.
Right.
Why should I be responsible for my father's promise?
Right, the Chachamim agree that
she's the one who promises the money. Then already there's a conversation. Do we say, well, she said it, she's got to hold to her word. If she doesn't give the money, then you can say, sorry, until I get the money, I'm not doing anything. But the opposite is that she still gets to say, yeah, but I'm a young girl. I was expecting my father was going to come in and pay the bill. And now all of a sudden my father tells me he's broke, he bought a boat, he's got no money.
What if she's saying it based upon the conversation you had 2 years prior I'm going to get you married? Do we land on that? That she had the verbal.
It seems it's just simply a question of, do we say that when a girl says, so you might ask a better question, which is, does it make a difference if she's above 12 or below 12? That's the next line of the book. Okay, sorry.
And there's no issue of whether the Bezdin can coerce the father to do anything.
Friends?
Yeah. That don't say the whole conversation. Just open the father, take the father-in-law to court and say, I'm taking you to an insider. You promised you were going to pay money. He goes to the whole arrangement.
Right.
The Kedusha's back.
Okay, weiter. The Tana qualifies the version of the dispute taught in the following brisa. Tana b'meh devarim amurim. In what circumstances do these words apply?
Specifically the brisa, not the Mishnah.
The brisa
where she's the one promising the money. That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
Real mixed shit.
I'm gonna give you the background.
No, you keep it.
Come and start again.
Let's start just now.
No.
We got room for
The one promise, but no, I can go back. We take over there.
Yeah, right there.
Weiter.
The last spot in the house.
Kalman, weiter.
You move this along the voice of my mind.
Was that?
Okay.
Yeah, loved it. You didn't.
Weiter.
All right, Pigdola, in the case of an adult bride, right? Aval Bitana Kopin, but in the case of a katana, everyone agrees that we use force here. So the Gemara is saying, what do you mean force here? Kopin Laman, whom do we force exactly? Ilema La'al. If one says we force the father to pay what the daughter promised, Ibcha Miba'ele, the Tana should have said the opposite here, right? Because if she's a minor, anything she says doesn't really matter anyway.
So if anything over there, we should disregard her words.
Yeah, it should be the opposite there. The father should be forced, the daughter's an adult.
Meaning, if we're saying koivin to the father would only make sense if she was an adult.
Right. So Rava says, rather, Eleh Ma Rava, the Brisa means that we force Kopin Lava'al Litain Get. We force the husband to give a get. In this case. The Tana teaches that when a bride is a minor who's not obligated to fulfill her pledge, even the Chachamim agree that she may not be left in the state of Erusin. The Chassan must divorce her or marry her without dowry.
Meaning when she is a kitana.
Correct.
As a gedola, that's where the.
But doesn't the father have to agree? Doesn't the father have to agree to the marriage and then just signed off or whatever?
Yeah, no, the father already had the picture. They already made the error.
This is specifically where the father. No, but he would know the guy wants a dowry.
This is
How does he allow? Like he would agree to marriage, just can't agree, and then that's it.
That's the whole thing here. He's
Then they pulled the back.
Yeah, that's it.
After the next got it.
Yeah, even the errors, I got it. Okay, so the Gemara cites a decision about the rulings of both Hanan and Admon.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, talks about, the overall dispute, right?
Yeah.
That we're talking about. A little bit wordy. Amar Rabbi Zera Amar.
Wordy is good.
Rabba Bar Yirmiyah. Rabbi Zera said in the name of.
Where'd you go?
Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah.
I'm Rabbi Yitzchak Ben Elazar.
Oh yeah, I did.
See, comment.
Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Ben Eliezer.
Not like Friday night.
Okay, Kalman Shamar Rabban Gamliel. Wherever Rabban Gamliel said, Ro'eh Ani Es Divrei Admon. I see the words of Admon as being correct. Halacha Kamoso, the law follows Admon. So then the Lord is clarified a little bit here. Amale Rava la Rav Nachman. Rava asked Rav Nachman, Afilu Brisa, does this law even apply to Admon's opinion cited in the Brisa? Amarle Rav Nachman said,
I think there's just a point of clarity here. By saying afilu bebraisa, you have to remember we saw a Mishnah and a Brisa, and the Mishnah and the Brisa are not opposite. I mean, the Mishnah we said is the loiki aitan of the Brisa. So by saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel's version of Admon, if you say it both in the Mishnah and in the Brisa, it comes out that we're paskening a stira. We're paskening like the Rabbi Gamliel of the Mishnah and like the Rabbi Gamliel of the Brisa, which would come out that they would be arguing. Because in the Mishnah, it's clear that they argue when the father promises the money. Whereas in the Brisa, it's that they're arguing when the daughter promises the money. So it comes out, according to the Mishnah, when Admon says his halacha, The Brisa would say that Adman would disagree with that, right? Meaning to say like, so it's, he's not just asking a semantic question, he's asking a halachic question. Do we say even in the Brisa, in which case then how do you put the Brisa and the Mishnah together? I think that's part of
this part. Well, this part throws me in a loop. I know the end. I know the end of it. Amar le Rabba Rav Nachman. Rabba asked Rav Nachman Afilu. Brisa, does this law, apply even to Admon's opinion cited in the Brisa? Amar le mi kamari ka'amrinan ba Mishnah. Didn't we say in the Mishnah? B'chol makam she'amar Rabban Gamliel kamrinan. Rather, we said wherever Rabban Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon as being correct, the law follows Admon. So the rule thus holds true even for Admon's ruling in the Brisa. The Gemara cites a decision now about the rulings of both Hanan and Admon. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah, Shnei Devarim Sha'amah Hanan Halacha Kayotsebo. Regarding these two opinions expressed by Hanan, the law follows the one who agrees with him. For example, I guess Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai.
That was the first Mishnah.
From the first Mishnah.
And then Rabban Gamliel.
Right, yeah.
And then Shiva.
Shiva Devarim Shama Adman El Halacha Bayotze Kayotze Bo. As for the 7 opinions expressed by Adman, the law does not follow the one who agrees with him, Rabban Gamliel. Ma Kamar, what's he saying? Elama Hachi Kamar. One might suggest that what he is saying, Shnei Devarim Sha'amah Hanan. Regarding these 2 opinions expressed by Hanan, Halacha Kemoso V'Chayotsebo, the law follows him and the one that agrees with him, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, V'Shiva Devarim Shama Adman. But as for the 7 opinions expressed by Adman, Ein Halacha Kemoso Below Kayotsebo, the law does not follow him, or the one who agrees with him, Rabban Gamliel. That is, the halacha runs contrary to Adman in all 7 of his rulings.
So 1 second. So what the statement originally meant was that the halacha could potentially be like Hanan because he was supported by 2 Tanaim, Yochanan and Zakkai and Rabban, whereas Admon, who was not supported in all 7 of his statements, he was only supported in some of his statements, the halacha is not like Admon because he wasn't supported. That's what the suggestion of the Gemara is now.
Okay. V'cha Amar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Eliezer Mishmei B'Chizkiah. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Eliezer said in the name of Chizkiah, Kol Makom Shamar Rabban Gamliel. Wherever Rabban Gamliel said, Ro'eh ani es divrei Adman, I see the words of Adman as being correct. Halacha kemoso. The law follows Adman. Thus, at least some of his opinions are halachically accepted.
So that means the original premise can be. It can't be that when he said the halacha is like Hanan in 2 and not like Admon in 7, that it meant what we thought it meant, because clearly if we hold like this Chizkiah, some of them we hold up, some of them we don't. So then how do we understand Reb Zera? Which is a little bit difficult because Reb Zera is an Amora and Chizkiah is an Amora. So why does Reb Zera have to be beholden to what Chizkiah said? Must be, we assume him to be some sort of an authoritative Amora more than some others. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, the Gemara is assuming that if Chizkiah said it this way, this is an agreement that everybody.
Maybe it's just in this topic he has more provisions.
Could be. Either way, that's a question mark.
Rather, this is what Reb Zera is saying. Regarding these 2 opinions expressed by Hanan, halacha kamoso v'chayotsebo, the law follows him and the one who agrees with him, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Shiva Devarim Shama Adman. Regarding the 7 opinions expressed by Adman, Ein Halacha Kayotsebo, the law does not follow the one that agrees with him, Rabban Gamliel. Ha Kamoso Halacha Bechul. Rather, the law follows him, Adman, in all of them. So it says in the art scroll here, Rabban Gamliel gave his approval only of the first 3 of Adman's rulings and not the last 4. implying that he disputes the last four rulings only. Nevertheless, the halacha follows Admon in all of his rulings. It does not follow Rabban Gamliel insofar as he agreed with only some of them.
So now he's saying that the halacha would be like him in all scenarios.
Right.
Like Admon,
Right.
not necessarily Robin.
Right. Meaning to say, when we're saying the ain in the second version, we're only excluding that we're not holding like Rabban Gamliel whenever he disagrees with Admon. But when he agrees with Admon, it just happens to be also.
But the Gemara is going to reject all.
Yes, the Gemara will reject it.
The Hamar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Eliezer Mishmei v'Chizkiah Kol Makam Shama Rabban Gamliel. Wherever Rabban Gamliel said, Ro'eh ani es divrei Adman, I see the words of Adman as being correct. Halacha menoso, the law follows him. Ama ein, the implication is that where Rabban Gamliel expressed his approval, the law follows Adman, lo amar lo, but where he did not express his approval, the law does not follow him. So then how can Reb Zera say the law always agrees with Adman?
So far, we've attempted to say that when he said what he said, he meant the halacha is never like him. The second time we said it must be what he's saying is that the halacha is always like him. But the fact that we have a separate statement from Tzidkiah implying that the halacha is sometimes like him and sometimes not like him, we want to put everything together, it doesn't fit.
And then finally, I think we're going to explain the whole thing. The Gemara is going to explain Reb Zera's statement. Ele hachi kama, this is what he's saying, Shnei Devarim she'amah Hanan, regarding these two opinions expressed by Hanan, halacha kamo, so v'chayotze bo, the law follows him and the one who agrees with him. Sheva Devarim she'amah Adman, regarding the seven opinions expressed by Adman, yesh mehen shehalacha kemoso v'chayotze bo. In some of them, the law follows him and the one that agrees with him. V'yesh mehen she'ein halacha kemoso ela kayotze bo. And in some of them, the law does not follow him, but it follows the one who elsewhere agrees with them. Okay, in the first three of Adman's rulings, which have Rabban Gamliel's approval, the halacha follows Adman. As far as the last four rulings, which were disputed by Rabban Gamliel, the halacha follows not Adman, but Rabban Gamliel.
So really, the simpler way to say what Rav Zera said was the two times Hanan spoke, the halacha is like Hanan because he's supported, and the halacha is always like Rabban Gamliel in any of the seven scenarios that Adman spoke. When Rabban Gamliel supports him, coincidentally happens to be the halacha like him. When he doesn't support him, then okay, the halacha is not like him.
So what does Adman have?
Really not much. Meaning, because you're right, I mean, really all he's effectively doing is being the introducer of the halacha, but all we care about is whether Rabban Gamliel agrees with him or not. It's almost as if Admon saying it is in and of itself a reason not to hold like it, because unless Rabban Gamliel opens up his mouth and says, I agree, we almost can assume, just like the George, everything I do is wrong, so therefore the opposite must be right.
Oh, that's not really my wife.
And then everything works out perfectly.
I think Seinfeld could give it that, by the way.
I'm sure he has.
Okay, B'chol makam shama Rabban Gamliel, that is wherever Rabban Gamliel said, Ra'eh ani es divrei Adman. And I think the Gemara probably could have just, said this last sentence here, right?
Yeah,
for the
but
most part, right?
it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Right, I know, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that. Es divrei Adman, I see the words of Adman as being correct. Halacha kemoso, the law follows Adman. Enoch law, but as far as his other rulings, the law does not follow Adman.
Like in the Mishnah.
Zuk the Mishnah. Ha'orer al hasedem. If one challenges the ownership of a field, vehu hasum aleha ve'ed, but he is signed as a witness on this deed that records the sale from another person to the occupant. So I think in this case, Ruvain is selling some property to Shimon, right? And he had signed.
Indeed.
And what happened is that that Levi originally had. Shimon is claiming that he stole the property from him, right? So he signed as a witness on the sale from Shimon to from Reuven to Shimon.
I'm not sure the names, but you have a guy signed on a document
Right.
saying that it belongs to Joe.
Yeah.
But he's the one who's saying it belongs to me.
Right.
Do we say
Right,
the
right.
statement in the shtar contradicts his claim, or do we say that no, he was doing his civic duty to be on the shtar, but that is separate, and he'll have some explanation for how it eventually
Right,
gets to his
there's a
hands?
personal responsibility in that.
Well, he was,
I'm not sure.
well, explain, right, explain to him why he would do it.
Yeah, I think the issue is that, there's
He's
the
a guy-
concern.
He was a powerful guy, so he was. once
Yeah,
himself-
why didn't he, why didn't
why
he
didn't he speak
open
up?
his mouth
Just-
before?
right,
He
right.
signed on the
Yeah.
thing,
Now we go on stage.
right? And, actually, Reuben challenges Shimon's ownership of the field, claiming that Levi, who sold it to Shimon, had stolen it from him. Reuben signed as a witness on the deed. So he signed as a witness. And so, the Chachamim are going to say later on that, well, he signed as a witness, so, it should be good. And he's going to go back and say, listen, there's a reason why I didn't open up my mouth before, right? We're going to get to that. Adman says the challenger's signature on the deed does not disprove his claim because he can argue, Hasheni Noach Li Vaharishon Kasher Heimenu. I participated in the sale of this field because the second guy is going to be a nicer guy. I know I can probably get my money back from him, but this guy's a powerful guy. He's a violent guy. Maybe he's gonna, break my kneecaps or whatever it is. And there's a little bit of
At
friendship.
what point does he claim that his ownership was in the field? After the sale, before the sale was gonna happen?
So right now, you have Reuven sold it to Shimon.
Right.
And Levi comes along and says,
I
this
own
field
it.
is mine.
Right.
Reuven stole it from me. Not Shimon. Reuven stole it
Oh,
from me.
Reuven
I'm
stole
coming
it.
to
I
claim
got
it from Shimon, and my
I got
claim
it.
is that Reuven stole it from me,
But I'm
and he's
signed
an
on it,
animal. I
right.
can't deal with him. So I signed on that star to get it into Shimon's hands, because I knew I'd get it out of
I
Shimon.
got it.
Shimon's a meek guy. I can sort of bring him to Bezdin. He
Gotcha.
doesn't know how to handle it.
Gotcha.
Reuven is a scary guy, so maybe him I don't want to.
Or Shimon, though. He's like a nice guy.
Shimon's actually, who buys a field from a guy who stole it? Idiot. He's an easy guy.
But he doesn't know. Why would he know? He saw the star.
I don't insure.
Is this Gemara contemplating that he's gonna pay him back yet or not?
What's that?
Is he gonna reimburse Shimon?
So he's going to say the field is mine, and
Right.
and Shimon's going to say when he loses the field, he's going to try to go after Reuben. Let Shimon deal with Reuben. That's effectively what
Yeah, but
he's saying.
Levi should be reimbursing Shimon. Because he signed on the star, he saw him sell it. He let him spend the money. It's one thing to say that, okay, I can get it back from Shimon, but now we got at least
That's an interesting
reimbursing
part.
him.
You said
Reimburse
since
him.
I was on the document.
Yeah, no
which I
problem,
didn't-
yeah, reimburse him.
That's interesting.
It'll go back.
He can maybe make the argument. I was only 1/8.
It'll go
I
back.
can get it back myself, and when I got to reimburse it,
It'll go back to the
screw
previous.
you.
Being pulled in all directions, like everyone wanted something different.
Would that be called name on that though?
Beautiful. Each one of
Right,
them.
the previous
Perfect
mission we
one.
said that if you pay off someone
Wasn't too
that
hot, not
put
too
money on
soft.
his
Right.
one over there.
It's no different than
All
right, Mike,
his wife's outside.
So the Chachamim Omrim, the Chachamim said, like we said, Eben es zechuso, by signing the deed, too late. He forfeited his right, to the field.
We basically don't give him this argument. This is a weak argument.
Right, yeah, it's a weak argument. Asa'a siman la'afer. So this is going to be another example here. So say this person, the occupant, used that disputed field as a boundary mark. So in the deed, it referenced this disputed field, but he sold another field, right? So he was a witness on that disputed field. It was just a boundary mark. It was on the boundary of the original deed that recorded the sale of the property to a different person. And the challenger signed as a witness on that deed. The same guy signed as a witness on the deed. Ibed es chuso, he has now forfeited his right to the disputed field. So when it's a boundary mark, no one argues that he can't really dispute anymore because he signed the deed, and the field that was disputed wasn't the one that was sold; it was another field.
He can't claim that he signed it so he would go to an easier.
Right? Yeah.
He doesn't have the motivation.
Right.
So
Meaning here the point is the guy who was claiming that it was stolen signed on to that second shtar.
Right.
That shtar was for a piece of land that just referenced in it. So
Yeah, it was referenced.
He doesn't have to deal with the
Right.
scenario, even Adnan here would agree. Well, what's the fear? Why did you sign on that document unless it must be true, in which case you don't really have any right.
Right, so here, everyone agrees that, he forfeited his right to the field. The Zukta Gemara, Omar Abaya said, Lo Shanu Elah Aid. They taught that this challenger's signature disproves his claim only when he signed the deed as a witness. Avol Dayan Lo Ebaid Es Zuchuso, but if he signed it as a judge, and in this case, because one would think usually in America, like the judge, he's really, Chashuv guy, he's going to read everything, he's going to look at all of the details, but no, here it's only the Adim are required to really look through the.
Watch the first case.
Not the second case.
Yeah.
In the first case, we don't trust the signature.
I don't get it.
No, it's the first
It's so interesting. Right.
In the first
It's
case,
so
Chachamim, when they say
Adam, right? We go on, Adam can sign the star, like a judge can just sign
A
it.
judge, because only the judge is the one that looks at the signature.
In the first case.
All he is certifying the signature. He's like a notary.
He's not really looking, he's like an
He's the notary. The judge is the notary.
He doesn't see what
The
it's.
Adian, he actually knows how to go
He
ahead.
actually didn't see what was said, what was, he didn't know it was his property or whatever.
It's
He
the
knows-
opposite of what one would think.
Right, but if you're a notary, like, you don't even look at, right.
Yeah,
The judge is more of a notary than.
Like in America, the witness
He's
is
not
so
passing
alive.
it in. He's not like
Right.
the judge passing it
He
in.
just writes certifying the signatures, so whereas he doesn't even know what field they're talking about, he just wants to see that, that's my
He
understanding.
doesn't care, he's a notary. When you go to get a document notarized, right? But sometimes they look. Sometimes they look.
He's not reading it.
It's not,
In fact,
it's not
it
on the
says in
hook
it that
for
something
Right.
is counter to.
It's not on the hook for it, right? It's counterintuitive.
Right, it is. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because one would think that the judge would be the person that.
Not if
would
it's a
be-
question of being Mekayim signature.
Well, that's the thing, he's a notary, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
All
just
you're
a
doing
notary.
is clarifying signatures, and the Dayan, all he's got to do is just signature.
Right, but it's not something that you would, inherently.
You mean there's a concept of like a notary in
Kiyam Shtar, yeah.
Kiyam Shtar is-
Do you have any notaries here?
Every lawyer, Josh, you're a notary.
Yeah.
Every notary in New York State is a lawyer.
Sometimes I need a notary, it's good to know.
You're a notary. 'Cause you're
All
one.
right, my turn. Betane Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Chia taught in the Brisa, Ein ha'edim chosmin al hashtar elahim kain kara'uhu. Witnesses, the edim may not sign a document until they, read it and they understand it, and because they're the ones that are going to testify to the transaction. They must be aware of everything. Right. Avol hadayayin hosmin af al pi shalo kirauhu. The judges may sign it, even if they haven't read it. So the challenger signed the deed as the judge. He can claim he failed to challenge it because that wasn't his role. He was, unaware of it. So the Gemara quotes now from the Mishnah's second clause, which is the one with the boundary mark. We're going to talk about this one. Asa'a simon la'achar, if the occupant used the disputed field as the boundary mark in the deed that records the sale of a different field to another person, and the challenger signed as a witness on that deed, he has forfeited his right to the disputed field, which is what we learned in the Mishnah. The Gemara draws an inference from the Mishnah. Amar Abaya lo shanu ele la'acher. They taught that the challenger forfeits his right only when that field is sold to another guy. Right? Avula atzmo lo ibed es chuso. But if that field is sold to himself, if he's the one that ended up buying the field, he does not forfeit his right to that disputed field. The Amar, because he can say, Ilu delu avdele hachi. If he had not done this, right? Lo hava mizabein la nehalil, the the occupant of that disputed field, he wouldn't have sold it to me. See, he had to go ahead and kind of cover it up, right? He didn't want to go ahead and put it all out there because he would have never been able to buy the field. Ma is lock lememar. So what can you say to refute my claim? Iba'eli lemim sar moda'a, that I should have served notice of my attempt to buy to all of the aliens. Havra ish lei v'chavra havra ish lei. Because your friend has a friend, and he's got another friend, he's got, they're all gonna talk about what happened, so no one's gonna keep the matter to themselves secretly, privately, and then it's gonna get out there, and then when the seller finds out, he's not gonna sell it to me, so that's why.
A nice, Gemara's gonna bring a nice.
Right, okay, so the Gemara narrates a real life instance of this second clause of the Mishnah here. Hahu da'asa'a siman la'acher. A certain guy, one guy intended to challenge the ownership of a field, used it as a boundary mark in the sale of that neighboring field to another person, like that second part of the Mishnah. He signed as a witness, which used the disputed field as the boundary mark and attributed to the current occupant. He later challenged the ownership of the field, but then he died. The Okim Apotropha, however, prior to his death, he appointed an administrator, to attend to his children's affairs. Ase Apitrophos Lekame da Abaye. The administrator came before Abaye to press the orphan's claim to the field. Amarle.
Meaning to say that he only signed on it in order to be able to affect the other sale, right? Meaning, and really, that first land really doesn't belong to Shimon.
Right. Yeah. Amarle, Abaya said, Asa'a Simon le acher ibeid es chuso. If this occupant used that disputed field as a boundary mark that records that sale to another person, and the challenger has forfeited, then the challenger has forfeited his rights to the disputed field. Hence, the orphans under your charge have no claim. Sorry, that's the halacha. So Amar, the administrator, went back. The apotropha went back, and he said to Abaya, "He hava avuhon the yasme kayam hava ta'in." If the father was still alive today, he would argue and he would say to the guy, Pelem echad asisi lechor. There was only one small part of that disputed field, which I used as a boundary mark for you. So in this case, since the deed did not specify the entire disputed amount, it can be interpreted as this minimum area. So if the boundary mark is referred to in the deed as a field, the challenger can say only when the borough has an area of at least 9 cobs, the minimum legally defined as a field. So although the father is no longer alive, any claim he could have made is accepted on behalf of his heirs, on behalf of the Yerushim, the heirs as well.
Meaning the apotropos is going to make these titles.
Right. So Amarle, Abaya said, Shapir Ka'amrat, you have spoken well. The Amar Reb Yochanan said, Im ta'an ba'amat telem echad asisi l'chor naman. If the challenger argues and said, I rendered only a small part of the field for you, we believe him in that.
Meaning because all that was put in the shtar was the identification of what it was next to, which as long as it's the last row in the field, that's all it really would be acknowledging. It's very possible that 98% of the carcass still belongs to me, and I only have to give up that one row. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. I may not believe it. I'm not sure why. We go by that. But
what do you mean? I have to claim that would be the halacha. The halacha would be.
The halacha is that when it's a small part of it, then you believe it.
Yeah.
All right,
Says the
so,
Gemara, okay, so then give it to him. So then at least give him that one row.
yeah. All right, so he presented the evidence that the administrator, the Apitropa, presented evidence that the entire field now belonged to, to the father, right? And that had been stolen from him. So Abaye said to him, Zil hav le mehas telem echad, at least give this person the one furrow. Since he could prove that the field was stolen, it had to be returned to the office. The occupant could still lay claim to that one piece because the deceased had admitted he didn't own that particular one.
Because that's what's in the shtar. The shtar said that.
One row, tell them the row. Where it is. It's only that one row.
Only that one. But on that, now the Apotropos comes with a new time. He says, no,
Right.
keep that also.
Rechba, the deeply, however, there was a hedge of palms on it. There was a row of palms, it's very nice, looked really nice.
This guy had a massive lulav business. They want to get rid of the lulav.
So in view of it, there's a lot of value on it.
Otherwise, we should all have Apotropos.
The Apotropos said that, he also said he put a claim in for the hedges now. I want that too. I'm related. He says to Abaya, Ihava Abuhan de Yasme Kayam Hava Ta'in Va'amar. If this guy was alive, he'd go back and say, Havarti Vilakachti Mimenu. I reacquired. That far, I bought it back from the guy.
But shouldn't he have a deed if that's the thing that I'm not sure? Why doesn't he have to prove with a shtar or some type?
Right.
That's why he didn't have to prove anything. After I signed the deed that admitted the borrow, he said he got a deed. Saying I bought it back, he was here.
Maybe because of the Yisomim we're able to make it. I don't know. Maybe it's just what good.
That's what he's trying to say, that there's a tanino here that we would give the Yisomim bigger power.
Right.
Could be. I mean, you have to say something like that. Because where's the document? Yisomim could say, hey, what do you want? We don't know where you can't find the document.
Right. If it was a stam, not Yisomim, it was a stam me.
I would assume he would say, you say you bought it.
Where's the deed?
Yeah. But to say, this is almost like a migu sort of thing. He could have said this, so we should have that.
All right, my turn. I'm relayed. Shafir Kamar. You have spoken well. Damar Rebbe Yochanan said, "In katan va'amar hazarti u'taktiv mimenu neman." If the challenger said, "I reacquired the property," he's believed without any proof. This is the one where we do hapesha sha'asa hapesha shehita.
Yeah, I'm going to start.
This is that concept that we learned way back, right?
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Before, are you going to continue to the end of the dot?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, only because it's a little late. I just don't know who's going to be.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm going to be picking up one way or the other for the Mishnah on the top of.
Thank you.
Walk out or whatever it is. I'm picking up for the Mishnah.
We're gonna finish the homeless Saturday.
Let's do it.
You got that controversial
Can
tomorrow.
I interrupt?
I'm looking forward to that controversial tomorrow.
Kalman, can I interrupt for 10 seconds?
Right?
Yeah.
What's that?
Cal, you coming to the stand?
I'll let you know.
Okay, Aaron, you coming to the stand? Kevin, you're
Who's
coming.
coming?
Rex, you coming to the stand?
Gino, Izzy's
5:55.
barbecue, Wednesday night. Minutes is that late?
Yeah.
Minchas at 5:45.
No, can
I thought it was at 7:30.
I thought it was 5:45.
You guys coming to the see him?
All right. 5:47.
5:47.
You made it 5:47.
I'll be there, but I may not be there.
It was at 5:47.
Yeah,
I think they're smoking the meat right now.
1 minute. Jakob, you coming to the stand? All right, whoever's coming to the stand, we have to be on time. They're only holding the table about 15 minutes.
I don't
They
like
don't-
that whole idea.
They don't do reservations. I told them it's Kalman at 5 times. Said Navy for 10 minutes.
Really?
They don't do reservations. They're holding spots as a
He
favor.
sounds like the guy from the Gemara.
8 minutes.
All right, so be there.
We can hold the table with
Right, but if they're going to 7:30 sharp. Listen.
If I can be there, I'll be
We're
there.
gonna stop with Myron.
Aaron,
We're gonna stop with
why do we have to
Myron,
go to
5:45, and then we'll all bounce.
Aaron said he's not going because it's.
Aaron says a lot of things, and then he shows up. 5:47.
We're not prepaying.
Five-
We're just gonna pay there. We'll
I think
figure it
we're
out.
fine.
555?
Huh? Right?
555? Oh, 547.
At candlelight.
So we'll have plenty of time.
Okay, so this week,
7:30?
547.
Okay, weiter.
Kevin,
Yeah.
5:47 will be there on Wednesday. With Av Mincha Marv, we'll leave.
Yes, then we'll be done.
Yeah.
Amarle, Abaya said, Shapir, Amar, you have spoken well. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Im ta'an ba'amah hazarti uchachin mimenu naman. If this guy said I required the property is believed. You guys said that already. So Abaya said, wow, what a apitropha here, Hi ma'an demokim apitropa nokim ki hai. Whoever appoints an administrator, the apitropa like you, the yadas la apuche bizchusa the yasme, who knows how to advocate the rights of the orphans like this guy. We should all have an administrator like this guy when we have an issue, a lawyer, someone like that, right? Okay, Zuk the Mishnah. The fifth of Adman's disputed ruling, Shehalach limdinas hayam la'avda derek sadehu. So a guy went overseas, right?
Yeah.
He had some property.
Yeah.
And he came back to his property.
We had this tomorrow.
And he couldn't get back to his house.
Yeah.
Where?
I can't get in the
That
house.
was a kite earlier.
We were talking about the bar mitzvah. It's not.
It was a kite, no, something with a kite.
No.
We're talking learning.
Through a graveyard. The only way he was able to go is through a graveyard.
Yeah, private conversations. Well, what's
No,
the
no, I'm saying where we had this Gemara.
conversation?
Asking where we had this Gemara that a guy couldn't get this property. So we said the Gemara was with a Kayan. The only way you get around is now through someone else's property or through a base island. Do you have to open up to let him go through? I think there was a figure like that.
Oh, where? In
When
which?
you get Gemara, I think it was in somewhere, no?
There's also a Gemara earlier that discussed that if I'm selling a piece of land, that the person who has the property next to mine has the rights to that sale first. He has the right of first.
Right, yeah.
He has the rofer on the sale because he's next to the neighbor and he wanted to be able to.
So anyway, so the guy went overseas. He's got a shtick land, nice property. Went back to his house, and now he can't figure out the path is gone. He can't get back to his house. Adman Omer Yelech Lo Batsara. He can go to his field by the shortest route. There's a lot of different entrances. He should just find the shortest path where he's got to go to. But Chachamim said, Yikne lo derek v'me'a mane. He must buy, a path to the field for $100, 100 miles. Oh, Yifrak ba'azir, or he needs to get a helicopter or, fly in the air like Superman back.
They make those jet
Catapult. Yeah, something like that. Zuk the Gemara.
Very interesting. This entire
Mata made the Rabbanan.
No?
What's the reason?
Isn't it very interesting, the language used in these Mishnayos, different like almost all of the other Mishnayos. You never find a Mishnah that says, what did it say before, hanging it on the horn of the deer, or, hey, he'll fly there, or what was the earlier one, he sticks his feet out and says, hey, you're right. You don't find that language.
The bottom of his feet.
What does the Mishnah say? Potter, Chayer, Posser, Mutter, Postel, Kosher. Here all of a sudden it's like, very creative. I don't know.
Because Adman, the whole thing about Adman.
I think these Mishnayos in general are just a little bit. I think it's like Rebuta and Nasi must have had like different versions of the Mishnayos. Maybe he didn't edit these ones. Like maybe he was just with his own notes. He's like, yeah, he says go fly a kite, and he says whatever. Then when he, it's a mitzvah. You should know all about it.
Anyway, so
sorry.
So the Gemara questions what's going on here. Matama the Rabbanan. Well, what's the reason of the Rabbanan? Shapir Kala Adman. Adman argues well. He should be entitled to get to his field. It's not his fault. He came back. He went on a trip to Eretz Israel. He came back and it's gone.
was only 3 years later.
You know, right. So Gemara answers, Amar Reb Yehuda, Amar Rav. Reb Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Kegon Shehek Uha Arba'a B'nei Adam Me'arba Ruchoseha. The Mishnah refers to a case in which this property is owned by 4 different people, surrounded on 4 different sides.
Each one can say, take it from him.
Yeah. So each of them can deflect the owner's claim that the lost path might not have been for his property, it was for the next guy, right?
Each one has the claim of Hamutz Mechaber.
Ihachi Matamat the Adman. So then in that case, what's Adman's reason? Why does Adman go ahead and say that we should be able to get the shortest path? So Amar Rava said the Arba'a the Asu Mi Koach Arba'a. In this case, of 4 owners who get their rights from 4 previous owners, Arba the Asu Mi Koach Had, or even 4 owners who get their rights from 1 previous owner. In other words, all the land was originally owned by 1 guy, and after the guy lost his path, divided all of the land and sold to a different buyer. Kole amalo plige de matzei madchele. Everyone agrees that they can go ahead and push him off. The owners of the surrounding properties. Even Adman would agree that in that case the owner has no right to a path.
Unless he pays for it, or
No, they all push them off.
Yeah.
Keep on playing with it.
Each of those guys can say that the path
Attorneys,
has been in one of the other properties. Oh, the other guy, go to the other property because it's owned by 4 different people. It's not my problem. It's Joe's problem, or Reuben's problem, cousin's problem.
nephew.
He plige. In which case do they disagree then? B'chad da'asei matoach arba'a. In the case of 1 owner who derives his right to the property from 4 previous owners. After the path to the field was lost, the 4 owners of the land all sold their properties to the same guy who is currently the sole owner of the property. So in that case, there's 1 owner to that property. Adman would hold that field owner can claim to the single owner, to the 1 guy who owns the property, Mikol Makom Darka Is Li Gavach. In any event, I have somewhere with you, right? Because you own all of it. So somewheres in here I have a path. You have to let me go to my property. V'Rabbanan Savrei. The rabbis still hold that the surrounding owner could say, "E shet kat shes kat." If you stay quiet and don't say anything, don't relinquish your claims, I'm going to sell you this path for a reasonable price,
Or
I'm
even
gonna give you it for 20
or even a
bucks.
not reasonable price, but cheap. Like
I'll give you a discount. I'm going to give you a discount on this price. Ve'ilo madar na shatar lamar yehu. But if you don't keep quiet here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything and I'm going to sell it back to everyone else.
and you're gonna get nothing.
And you're going to get nothing. No one is going to like to file a claim, or they're going to sell it to you for 500 manas, whatever they want, and you're not going to be able to get back to your property. V'lo matzis le'ish ta'yeh dina b'chad yehu. You won't be able to file any claim against your property.
That's the machlekes. The machlekes is dafka when you have 1 guy who owns it from 4. Where do I get the power of the claim of the 4, or am I sort of screwed by being 1 guy who happens to now own all 4 and the manushach you can get his 4?
Yeah. So now the Gemara is going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, I think, inside a related incident. Hahuda amalahu, a certain man said to the heirs, Dikla livras, there was a palm from my estate that I want to, he said verbally, I think he might have said it on his deathbed or something, right? He said, when I go,
Well, he's not. He's saying, I want
Palm tree.
He's making a matana to his daughter.
You could do it, man, before he dies.
Yeah, before he does. So it's not a
He wants
Yerusha
the
issue.
palm tree to be
Daughter
given to his
gets palm
daughter. Yeah, he wants his daughter to get the palm tree.
That's very nice.
Nice
The palm
request,
tree.
right? But he didn't specify which palm tree, because he owned different palm trees, right? Azul Yasmi Palug Leniv Se Lo Yahavu La Dikla. Upon his death, the male orphans went and they divided the possessions because that's what that's what they're supposed to do in Yerusha. It's divided among the guys, but they didn't give his daughter the palm tree.
Why?
We can get to it. Sava Rav Yosef Lemeimar Haifnu Masnisen. Rav Yosef thought that this is a similar case to the Mishnah. In our Mishnah's case, the surrounding properties were owned by different people, so each one could deflect and say that the property was really the path was from another guy's property. So in this case, each one could say the daughter was not. The tree was in. It was in Joe's house and not my house. It was one of the other. It was in my cousin's house. Whatever. It wasn't me.
Stevie.
Take it from Stevie. Yeah.
So the promise to the desire for the daughter was for a specific palm tree. It just wasn't specified clearly
Right.
which one, not a palm tree, but
Each is arguing.
this palm tree. So they
Well,
could
he
all
didn't
say
it.
we
He
got
He
the
was
palm
dying. He
tree.
was on his deathbed. He said, I want my daughter to have a palm tree. Yeah, I don't think it's specified which palm tree.
No, but if it's not specified, then they can't say he meant on another, or are you saying that it
He's
meant?
not giving him anything at all. They're just not, they didn't give any palm tree.
Meaning, it could be there's a difference. Meaning, if the father said, I want it to be this tree, well, then there's
Then you can't
nothing to
argue
talk
with
about,
it,
right?
right?
Meaning, then
No,
the son
but
who it's in his rishus would have to give it.
No, if he said the palm tree, then they could all dispute, he meant
Which-
the
which-
palm
oh,
tree,
right.
there, not the palm. If he said a palm tree, how could they just say they're all sort of?
Yeah.
Marley Abaye. So that analogy is completely rejected here.
No good.
Mi dame. It's how is it comparable to the Mishnah? Hasam kol chad ve'achad matzei madchei. There, in the Mishnah's case, each of the properties is able to deflect by saying it's not in his property. In this case, the tree is somewhere, right, in the air.
And I think at one point belonged to the father.
Right.
And was
They all inherit the property together. So.
Hache dikla gabai hu. My takan taihu.
I
What's that remedy?
think what Dan is saying is important. When we discuss Yerusha, Yerusha is different than Matan. It comes up a lot. When you discuss Yerusha, we don't view what you get as your Yerusha and what he gets as his Yerusha. You really all inherit the entire estate, and then there is a Chachur.
And then you buy it.
You think that's really you inherited the whole
That's
thing.
Braver, right?
Right. And what ends up coming to you is what your Yerusha was ultimately yours. But technically, when the father dies, you inherit the whole thing along with your brothers, and then there's a split. But that means at the moment the father died, you all collectively owed her a debt.
She doesn't inherit anything.
I'm in.
No, but her estate owes her for the matana that the father had while he
It's
died.
not divided yet. It's not like
That's
when
what
he dies.
Meaning if it was somehow, let's say the father wanted to subvert the entire laws of inheritance, and on his deathbed, he says, okay, you get the north field, you get the south field, you get the east field, you get the west field, and she gets a shekel, then it could very well be that they would then, would be the exact same case as the case of the four fields with the guy in the middle.
If it was
Then,
specific on
even without being specific on the tree, but by specifically making it a matana before death. Now, when he dies, each one is only getting their land, and each one could say, well, maybe the decal only came from his field, and from his field, from his field. That could be a difference. I'm not sure, but I think that's.
But if you
That's
give
the
him a
next
field,
one.
then how is she getting to it if we keep?
Okay, so what's their remedy here? What procedure are they going
Maybe
to
then we
follow?
would say that she gets to say, she gets to cheap this.
Yeah.
So whatever the Derech Katzar would be against her decal.
Okay, Las Vula, Dikla, Veled Ru Velif Lebu Meresha. They should give her a tree. Give it a tree, and now go back and redivide from scratch.
Now make a new equal split.
Yeah, and that way, the original division was invalid since it included property that they were supposed to give to the daughter. Now go back and do it again. So there was another incident regarding a palm that was also bequeathed to the daughter. Hahuda Amalahu, a certain man said to his heirs, Dikli Lavras, a palm from my estate, a palm tree should be given to my daughter. Same thing as before. Shaviv Shavi Tere Palgay Zedikla, he dies leaving 2 halves of 2 palm trees in addition to several whole palm trees. Yashiv Rav Ashi Bata Kashyale. So Rav Ashi sat and he posed a question. Mi karu inshe litre palgay dikle dikla o lo. Do people refer to 2 halves of a palm tree as a palm or not? You know, does it really count? If you got 2, does it count as 1? So Amar le Rav Mordechai, Rav Ashi, Rav Mordechai says to Rav Ashi, Hachi ama avimi mehadron ya mishmei deraba. Thus said Amara, the Amara Avimu from Hagaronia in the name of Rava, Haru In Shay Lisray Palgay Dicklay Dickla. I mean, palm. I want that none of this is possible without my wife not only encouraging me and motivating me by saying help with all of
I didn't watch.
Now we're gonna swim in the pool. Is it raining? You got your bathing suits? It's nice.
All right, I'm not benching by myself. That's what
I think I'm benching.
You had it in mind? What?
Are you gonna?
You have to ask the Rob. Oh, Rebbe.
You should the rest of the car? No. Because I have to take it off the 8.
I'm entering the place, right?
Of course we do.
Do I need a mezuzah here or here?
No. Where?
My wife
Here,
wants
maybe here, Rabbi.
Where?
Because she said it's maybe like an inch.
No.
No mezuzahs here. Right? Be
Maybe
careful.
here, Rabbi.
Yeah, you need a mezuzah.
So there I need another one.
There you
Let me show you what I have.
Yeah. Here you might need one. You have a post on this side.
We're benching?
Yeah. We're gonna bench. We're gonna bench. We're gonna bench.
Benched already. Oh, man, I thought it would come back.
Okay. We're gonna bench. Rebbe.
I like this man cave.
Mezuzah where? Here.
Yeah, on this side.
Right here.
Right here and here.
No, over here.
Tell me where I put it.
By the door closed.
Yeah.
No, on this side.
Here, right here. Okay.
Are we benching? Are you benched already? That's right. I'm not ready. Stretch either. We have a garbage here? Perfect. Stack it all up. 9999999. Kevin? Yeah. Right, Molotov, big Molotov here. Is it? Yeah, I think so. I think so. We turn this thing off? Hey. Should I turn it off? How do we turn it off?
I could have made a party today. It's not raining.